that is probably the closest I would get to seeing Michael Jackson in concert. Like, that's probably the closest I'll get. Welcome back to Mode Theory, my media analysis platform. As usual, I'm just going to get straight into it. Today, I am talking about the Michael movie. So, the new Michael Jackson biopic that has come out recently. I'm in the UK, so it came out April 22nd, and I kind of dragged my feet and I only watched it about 2 days ago, so the 4th of May. And honestly, I gotta give it to them. I underestimated how much I would enjoy this movie, and I will let you know why. So, the first reason is honestly, whilst I've always had, like many people, just a very solid respect for Michael Jackson, I'm very aware of the legend that he is and that we'll never get another him, essentially. Michael passed away when I was below the age of 10. So I didn't grow up in the era of him rising to fame, right? Like, it wasn't something I was so eager or invested in. Second reason why I kind of dragged my feet was because I don't know why. I was just under the impression that I was either going to see a really boring and lengthy biopic or some heavily dramatized biopic that I'm not interested in. And I think the last reason why I kind of took my time to watch the film is because one thing you will get to know about me is I have a tolerance for things like musicals or musical biopics. I kind of try to avoid musicals. Some of them are very good, but I'm not the biggest fan of, in the middle of dialogue, let's start singing and dancing. And obviously, because it's Michael Jackson, it may not be a musical, but it's going to include those kind of song breaks, right? And so, just because I'm not at times the biggest fan, I kind of did drag my feet. But all in all, I was taken aback. I'm going to start positive for this video because the movie has gotten a mixture of reviews, right? It kind of seems like people either really loved the film or they really hate the film. I enjoyed the film, but I think I enjoyed it because I was aware of the type of film I was watching 30 minutes in. And I will touch on that later on. You'll see what I mean. Just a short disclaimer. I know obviously the movie is about Michael Jackson's life, but this video is not me analyzing his actual life. Remember that this video is a review of the movie that I saw in front of me. If you're looking for a video that's, going into the depths of his life and how that corresponds with the movie, I may touch on that in another video, but this is the movie review. Just saying. I'm going to start off positive because I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy this movie thoroughly. The first, most blinding, most obvious, amazing element of this movie, in my opinion, was Jafar Jackson, as in, come to this stage, take all the medals in the world. I just think it was almost uncanny, the resemblance between him and Michael growing up, right? I do appreciate that they kept it within the family and that they didn't get just some random bozo lookalike from the streets. You could argue that genetically, in terms of appearance, he did cheat a bit because, well, genetically they're related. So he's bound to look more like Michael, right? But I think that was an obvious thing to do. I think, why not? If someone has the acting talent to play him and they look alike already, I think it was a really amazing choice. And to me, just common sense. But like I said, the resemblance was truly uncanny at some points. There were some points where I was truly just taken aback by his voice, his mannerisms, the way he's communicating with people. It was truly too much. Like, I was in awe, and I just think it was such an amazing performance. You could really tell that he mastered his tiny little mannerisms and just the way Michael really is. He really embodied Michael, in my opinion. He was made for the role. And this might sound a bit corny. I don't want to sound corny, but in my opinion, and look, argue with me if you want to, but that to me was an Oscar performance to me. I think it was an Oscar winning performance because it was truly just so uncanny. He got everything on point. And we saw that not only in just the dialogue scenes, but the reason why I was so impressed is that we saw that in the song and dance sequences. And then I even did some research and found out that in some of the songs, it's actually his voice and not Michael's. And so my jaw kind of dropped. It's like, so are you Michael? Like, what's great? We'll never get another Michael. But you know what I mean. Speaking of the performances, that was another thing I really picked up quickly and that I was quite shocked at actually is how much I enjoyed the dance breaks. Like I said in the beginning of the video, normally I'm just not the biggest fan of dance breaks, but that is probably the closest I would get to seeing Michael Jackson in concert. Like, that's probably the closest I'll get because obviously he's not with us anymore. I thoroughly enjoyed the dance and song breaks. I think my favorite one was the Thriller one. And dude, we've all seen the Thriller video and he just reenacted it so well, in my opinion. So well, in my opinion. It felt like I was like, I could talk all day about how uncanny and how accurate the performance was. So let me just wrap that up. Another element to the movie that made it enjoyable for me was actually the pacing. I think with biopics, you can go wrong when you're depicting someone like Michael Jackson's life. It's almost like because he's so famous, we already know what's going to happen, right? Like, we know that there'll be scenes of him, being abused by his father. We know the Pepsi thing's coming. We know the key points of his life because he's just that famous. And so when you're in predicaments like this, you need to get the pacing right. Because your audience know what's going to happen, it needs to happen. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't once feel like, oh, this is going to be this part, isn't it? Even though I was aware of the sequence of events that I was about to see, I still thoroughly enjoyed it because they kind of just got on with it, which for me personally made it a lot more enjoyable. The last element that I think added the extra layer of stardom to the movie as a whole was or were some of the actors and actresses that I saw. Again, I dragged my feet to watch this movie. I didn't do a lot of research on it. So I was very shocked to see people like Coleman Domingo playing his father, Nia Long as his mother. I did love seeing Miles Teller as his manager that took over after he fired his father essentially. So, when you have well-known actors and actresses in movie, it just adds that extra layer of stardom and excitement, I guess. So it was really lovely to see them on my screen, especially because I didn't know they'd be in it. Now, like I said, this movie does have a lot of mixed reviews. And even though I enjoyed the movie, I can see why people would critique it in the way they have. So if you remember me saying in the beginning of the video, right, I said that 30 minutes in, I knew the type of movie I had purchased a ticket for. People complained that it was a bit two dimensional and that it lacked that beefiness and that complexity. And let me tell you this, I truly think that the motive of this film was, let's celebrate Michael Jackson and highlight the key points of his life. If you were looking for a movie with like complex character development and strong, intense emotional scenes, and don't get me wrong, there were a couple scenes that did pull my heartstrings, like the scene where he came back from getting the nose job, or when his father would beat him. But if you were looking for that real character development, I don't think this was the movie for that. And I think maybe that's where the critique is coming from. And I get it, right? I get it, because Michael was a complex character. But I think so much happened in his life that I don't know if there was kind of time for that in this movie. It was very apparent that it wasn't that kind of movie and that let's just celebrate his life. Kind of jumping off the back of that, another critique that I did see is that people were concerned that the film might have been a bit biased. So the film was actually co-produced by the Jackson estate, meaning they would have had quite a heavy influence on what was portrayed. I do understand the concept of, well, if it's being co-produced by his family, are you really telling the truth? I get it. So the film in that sense is biased, but again, I just think that ties in with the whole thing of it being targeted to be a feel-good film. People also didn't like that Janet Jackson wasn't involved, and from my research, I don't think she wanted to be involved. And you know what? I don't feel like we can argue with that. I feel like it must be triggering or it must be difficult to be that famous and, have people reenact your life, on screen. Some people just don't want that. And she's well within her rights. I don't know if I can even argue with that. If someone doesn't want to be a part of something, I guess we just have to respect their wishes and that be that. Yes, at some points I did wonder, like, oh yeah, Janet hasn't showed up yet, but apparently she didn't want to be part of it, and that's completely up to her. And I actually completely respect that decision. Lastly, people didn't like that it ended so abruptly. So I can't lie, when it ended at the end of the bad performance, because I was enjoying it so much, I too didn't want it to end. However, I have heard some rumors about there being a part two, and it did say, I think at the end, his story continues or something. So I think that's alluding to a part two. I guess some people just kind of wanted to see it in one sitting. I feel like you can't please people. Some people have the attitude of, oh, like now I have to wait potentially another year or two for a movie that I could have just gotten out the way in one go, essentially. I don't know. Me personally, if they do make a part two, I don't mind waiting. I do think the part two would be a bit different from the part one, just judging on the point of his life that the movie ended, right? So I do think part two would be slightly different, but hey, I get people's frustrations with that. Like, if you want to see something in one sitting, if you don't think something is worth a part two, then I guess you would feel that way, right? So all in all, that's honestly a mixture of the good I've heard about the film and the good that I thoroughly enjoyed about the film and just some of the critiques. Honestly, comment below what you think. If you've watched it, did you like it? Did you not like it? Because like I said, it just feels like it's so split in the middle. It's like I talk to people and they either love it or they hate it. I loved it. Again, I just think Jafar Jackson, like, a phenomenal performance. Make sure you check out my blog in the description, and I shall see you guys next time.